Beyond the Mic with Sean Dillon.
We're joined on the Starline by a pair of musical artists separated by 5,642 miles, but have found a mission restoring the world despite seemingly overwhelming odds. We welcome Olivier Raynal and Andrew Doolittle, also known as Antisolar.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
Absolutely great, gentlemen. Let's go beyond the mic. The anti-solar point is 180 degrees from the sun. Why was anti-solar such an appropriate name as your band?
Ooh, good one. Olivier, do you want to start?
Yeah, I was going to delegate to you on that one, but no. In the end, the general project with Andrew just always felt a bit galactic for us. We wanted this journey. We talked about this sort of journey that we'd be taking, similar to the two of us, given the amount of time that we've known each other, the amount of time that some of these songs took to gestate, and over the years, it was the sort of theme, and the band name wanted to reflect that. We went through quite a few over the last few months, and we just, none of them really sat right. And Andrew had a stroke of genius lightning as far as we're concerned. He just one day said, "What about Antisolar?" And I thought, well, that is very cool. We're traveling, for us, it's the travel beyond the sun, be past the sun and away from it as we look back, sending back our musical vibes to the earth, I think is how I see it anyway. So we thought Antisolar. Yeah. Yeah, Antisolar, and let's just go with it.
If you could describe your music to others, how would you do it in under 10 words, Andrew?
Ooh, I would say lush, broad, and I don't know, like laying down in a bed of sound.
So what were some of the rejected names?
So we had Star Pilots Alliance was one of them. The SPA, and then the Interstellar Pilots Alliance, the IPA, which, obviously has some other connotations there. Those were a couple of the ones that we went through that didn't quite make the cut, but all of them had kind of these similar, like, exploring the universe kind of themes to them. So there was a common thread running through it. And then one of Olivier's favorites too was Star Phoenix, which is one that came very close to making the cut, but in a way is kind of integrated into our logo. Like our logo has, this very elegant looking phoenix as a prominent feature of it. So that one kind of made the cut, but didn't, I guess.
And that phoenix is our ship.
Olivier, Studio City Sound in LA has special meaning for you both. What makes it such a special place to record?
Good one. Nostalgia is a very, very important thing for me. Everything I write, everything I even as an actor, I really, it's a powerful tool for me to go into. And Studio City has a lot of great memories for me from my time in LA in the early 2000s, leading up to the point where I met Andrew, when and where I met Andrew, which was Studio City in 2005, I believe, while working on another project, which Andrew ended up participating on a lot. Then I moved back to France after having lived in LA for quite a few years. And the idea of coming back, I remember that was my first trip back when I landed in Burbank, just all the smells, the palm trees, the vibes, everything just came rushing back. And it put me in a really wonderful womb of memories to then just sort of travel in while I was in the recording studio. And it just helps. It feels like you're embalmed in something special in a place that you really love.
I was going to say you're embalmed with the whatever's emitting from all the idling cars, but that's from point A to point B. Yeah. Once we are you sure that's palm trees you're smelling?
Well,
yep.
It was jet fuel probably, but yeah. Why was working together just seem right?
Yeah, so I think for me, Olivier has a writing style that for me was really just something I'd never heard before. I mean, there's some close analogs, in some other, music that I love from the early 2000s, but at the same time, like, there's this great element of surprise in a lot of Olivier's writing, in part because he'll do unconventional things like key changes at times that one wouldn't expect them, and things that he just kind of hears and goes for that, to me, kind of coming out of like a conservatory background was really just kind of a breath of fresh air. So it opened my mind and gave me a lot of inspiration for just things to kind of explore. And really the overall aesthetic as well was something that I found very appealing. Just kind of the whole, again, kind of bed of sound and the lushness to the music was something that, gave me a broad range of things that I kind of was inspired to try to explore.
We've created this sort of symbiosis where, Andrew being who he is and from the background that he has really grounds in a good way, grounds my creativity, which is always a really difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to find that in a partner, someone that really completes. We truly are a yin and a yang in many ways, very left brain, right brain in our ways of approaching the work. And then we kind of mix all that up, as we're performing. So it just, there's this really great, 360-degree circle where we really complete each other. Not to quote an old Tom Cruise film, but it works really well for us. I think the songs are a testament to that, and it just brings all of our respective influences over the years into some really, I think, original sounds.
Andrew Doolittle, Olivier Raynal, they're known as Antisolar, and they join us beyond the mic. Gentlemen, Do We Tremble at Night was created after a mass shooting. How did the emotions of anger, fear, grief, and helplessness transform you creatively?
We kind of laughed the other day because Andrew seems to think it was a different mass shooting to me, and I think it was probably over a few. The reality is just the succession of the mass shootings was the initial spark, and our incredible ability as human beings to just pass the buck when it comes to responsibility, our responsibility towards this planet. It just weighed a lot, and it's nothing more than just a need to cry out for me. If I don't do it with music, which is probably the most elegant form that I can come up with to express myself, because everything else is just either punching someone, screaming at someone, ridiculously in the middle of the Parisian streets where the stress is equal to, New York City and whatnot. With the music, something just happens and words just start to come out in prose, a bit of an impressionistic style. I think I have where my storytelling isn't linear at times, but yet the emotion gets released. And I'm very grateful that Andrew really, really got into my head with that one and did some amazing work with all of the instrumentation on that song.
Yeah, I think Tremble is one of those songs. It was really, I remember it very clearly. I was actually flying up to Canada and going through the airport when I got stream of WhatsApp messages from Olivier that he was, talking about having seen this horrendous thing on TV and basically starting to respond by writing. And I think that, certainly there's a catharsis in music where, these feelings that we find so difficult to wrestle with, just on a fundamental human level, can find some expression through this medium. And then really, I think what's particularly cool about that song is that it's morphed into a call to action on a lot of other levels. And it really went beyond just the response to the mass shooting into these broader questions of, why are we so willing to tolerate, just this endless succession of kind of violence towards each other, violence towards the environment, all these things that inevitably come right back to harm us as individuals, whether we're the victims or the perpetrators. It's a cycle that we as humans are all caught in. And so really, I think the overriding message of the song is, hey, let's take a step back here and see if this is really the life that we want to collectively live.
Olivier, you explored Kenya in your search for a change. How did seeing the last two living northern white rhinos change you as a man?
Oh, wow. Sorry. That almost drew a tear. It changed everything. I'm going back in a week. So your hands are on extinction. Your hands are literally on extinction. It's really unfortunate, but it's going to be a heck of a miracle if that species is able to survive and to witness that, to see it, and to really have the Kenyan sunset in the background, hugging this animal. I couldn't help but just feel completely connected to something so spiritual and at the same time very real, very scientific. The biology that they're using to try and perpetuate the species is really incredible. And I was just overwhelmed by all of the efforts that are being made by this conservancy. Not just this one, but this is my first. This was my first conservancy, my first friends there. Projects are continuing with them, inspiring music and documentaries. And you just see a mirror of yourself. These are the last two rhinos. It could very well be the last two humans, at least on Earth. I think the rich ones will get away on the spaceship one day, but the rest of us are left with their fumes.
Andrew, you're a guitarist, studio musician, and guitar professor. Mm-hmm. How has teaching helped create change others for their future and for yours? I
mean, first of all, just kind of more broadly in terms of teaching, there's such a great joy in teaching and sharing knowledge. And I also feel like it's a real refiner's fire in the sense that it really makes you become better about even your own understanding about things. Like if you can teach it, your own depth of knowledge about it is inevitably going to deepen. For me, it's just a great joy to see how people take the information that I might share with them and hopefully also just the inspiration that I convey and, transform that into what it means for them in their own lives and their own path. So it may not even necessarily be a direct path into, guitar specifically, music generally, something like that, but just, hopefully that something that continues to inspire them and be a part of their life. Maybe all it does is change the way they listen to music and appreciate music. But those things I think are kind of huge and rewarding in both directions, enriching their life and certainly enriching mine as well.
It's time for the Rocking 88 Random Questions. Answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. There's no pressure since we have two guests. Olivier, being further away from me, will go first, then Andrew. Andrew, what's one place you'll never be seen at?
Under the foam at a dance club in Ibiza.
I was just talking to someone who nearly drowned.
Oh, really?
2 days ago, he was telling me the story of him almost drowning in exactly that situation.
Hence my answer, yeah.
Perfect.
How about for both of you? What's your worst habit when you get nervous?
The worst? I suppose I fart a lot.
Yeah, I'll go. Worst habit when I get nervous is probably forgetting things.
That's much cleaner than mine. I do have that too.
Olivier, what's in your famous homemade rib rub?
Yeah, which I'm going to be using in my restaurant here in a few weeks when it reopens in the Alps. But I'd be revealing a secret ingredient, which is probably not so secret for everybody. But I like cayenne pepper.
Andrew, what's the one thing you cook other people ask for?
Ooh, wow. I would say my Christmas morning waffles.
Olivier, what do you miss about LA?
I've already said the palm trees, right? So the obvious, the weather.
Andrew, what do you miss about Paris?
Ooh, I would say just the cool vibe walking the streets there late at night.
Where's your favorite place to have played music live?
I want to say LA. But we had such amazing shows both in LA and Paris. So I'm going to say LA.
I'll go Symphony Hall in Boston.
There we go. That's cooler.
Gentlemen, if you could replace one body part with a bionic replacement, which would you choose?
My knee.
Too much skiing?
Too much skiing.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll go with my legs because, it'd be nice to have like a LeBron vertical jump.
What's the best album you've heard that isn't yours of all time?
Ooh. Oh, wow. Best album that isn't, obviously, of all time. I could name 10. I love so many different genres.
Name a couple.
Over in each decade, there's something. I can name a couple. The ones that really I'll try and name a couple that really did something to me. Black Celebration by Depeche Mode really did something to me, as did their Songs of Faith and Devotion. I'm a big Depeche Mode fan, but that I was introduced with Black Celebration. Songs of Faith and Devotion for me is their best album. Any pick of Red Hot Chili Peppers, I absolutely love the Chili Peppers, but the Sex Magic album 1991 was incredible. Pearl Jam's 10, but the follow-up versus something that, when that album opens up, something happens to me. The power behind that Pearl Jam album, those three there kind of tell my universe. Those three bands are quite different, and yet they're equally as important to me.
I'll go with two. I'll go The Wall by Pink Floyd, and second, the first Dire Straits record.
Non-relative who inspires you to be better every day.
Well, these days it's the wildlife rangers that I follow very closely. More of them die than FBI agents in the line of fire, and what they do, and it's definitely not for the money.
Oh man, I'm having a tough time thinking about this one. Let's go Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
If you're enjoying these conversations, please check out another Beyond the Mic episode to find more actors, artists, and people you need to know. We'd also appreciate a like and subscribe on the Good Pods app. It's time for the back half with Olivier and Andrew from Antisolar Beyond the Mic. Olivier, as an actor, musician, and composer, you've allowed the creative process for your own evolution. How have you evolved from when you first started in music to now?
Nice to have to think about that. How have I evolved? That's I think I believe more. I believe in the ability to think about something and take it, past the finish line, whether it's a composition or a part. I think that just has come with a little bit more confidence in the job aspect, that it's, in my 20s, it was part of a learning process to take all of this imaginary and hone all of that energy to do something that was creative, but it needed to become constructive. I think that's how I've grown the most. Is I understand that process very well now, and it allows me to believe in the most preposterous possibilities, and it gives me a blueprint on how to achieve it. It's a little bit more methodical now.
Andrew, when did music first touch your soul, and who gave you such a passion for it?
I would say that fundamentally the passion for music came from my mom in terms of kind of planting the seed, but the real fire didn't get lit until I was 12 years old and went to a Poison concert. And then it was like, that's what I want to do, and for better or worse, that set me on the course forever there. So
great. Yeah. My father is just a huge fan of music. I grew up from the earliest memory. I had Mozart. He's a huge fan of Mozart, and so am I. Mozart and Beethoven. Everyone else can fall off the face of the Mozart and Beethoven. He also just loved everything. We had Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles playing in the 70s. My earliest memories of music would be those two, along with the Star Wars soundtrack. And his sister, my aunt, was an opera singer.
Olivier, when you're in front of a camera or on stage, how does your stage presence change from trying to impress a camera, which is pretty well, you can't impress it, to being in front of fans?
Yeah, great question. I don't know that it's trying to impress the camera or the fans. The camera allows you to bring your audience into your psychosis. You bring the audience in. Stage work, you need to bring yourself out to the audience. And that's, to me, the fundamental difference between how you work stage versus camera, be it stage acting versus stage performance, but also, recording. The difference between recording your album and then actually performing it in front of people will have that same effect, that same difference.
Do you still have butterflies when you are in front of the camera?
No, see, that's part of the evolution. I may get it. I may get nervous before, depending on the complexities of the scene or who I'm working with. Sometimes that can still have a bit of an impression. The stakes can, for all of us, I think stakes tend to determine just how nervous we get before something. But you trust in the foundation that you've built.
Andrew, how has mentoring Sean Seagal changed you as a person?
Wow. Sean, well, so I've known Sean forever. Sean, I think was kind of hanging around when he was like 5 years old. And it's been awesome. Like actually around the time that Olivier and I were working on these songs, I also produced an EP for Sean. And, it's been really cool just to see his growth. I mean, first of all, he just became a fantastic guitar player, but he's also, always been very focused on ultimately what he wants to do, which is film scoring. And so I think, he's kind of a case study in everything that I hope for a student. It's not necessarily to morph them into like the great guitar player, although again, Sean has certainly become that, but, mostly just kind of give them the tools to let this be a part of their life in whatever way they like. So I think, to that and the way in which it's changed me is it's kind of just renewed my hope that this is a valid way that I can contribute to people's lives.
Gentlemen, how has your parents supported your artistry?
Interesting. Well, I lost my mother young. I was in my expansion years. I was in my early to mid 20s when my mother passed away. So it was still an early time, but emotionally, she was always very supportive. My grandmother played a very big role in support on my father's side. My father, it was a bit more spotty. He was always very doubtful, very suspicious. Even though his own father, my grandfather, was an actor, director in the arts, and maybe that's why. His sister was the opera singer. For him, it was definitely something that I would have to go and do on my own, and then come back with a bit of proof that I made the right decision. So I don't know if that's being supportive or just, passively waiting to see if he can say bravo. I
have nothing but gratitude towards my parents, who I can remember really nothing but support from day one, which is, amazing. I mean, I think on some level, subconsciously parents always want their kids to have something that's going to be stable and going to provide them a good life. But my parents never conveyed anything to me but hope and optimism that was possible, and just great support there. So I have nothing but thanks and gratitude for that.
Andrew Doolittle, Olivier Raynal, they are Antisolar, and they join us beyond the mic. Andrew is taping this interview in a car, hiding from his kids in LA. Olivier is hiding from his kids in his closet. How has kids changed your life?
I think that it really just does a lot to remind you that it's not all about you, that there's much more to your life, to your pursuits. I mean, in a way, it kind of circles back to a lot of those things that we talked about in conjunction with We Tremble at Night, which is, ultimately what kind of world do we want to live in and what kind of world do we want to build? And those are the kind of things that I think just go way beyond, whatever petty things may otherwise distract us. So I think, first of all, kids bring back such an amazing sense of wonder, which is just a beautiful, beautiful thing to have as a constant in your life. But then the other part of it is that they just take your mind off a lot of the petty things that can otherwise occupy you and draw you back to what's really important.
Yeah, and they're able to do that, while screaming at the top of their lungs and driving you absolutely crazy, trying to get everything in order, Rush. I mean, I forget things when I'm stressed, and certainly the amount of times where my little one is, having a bit of a tantrum, or is when we have to leave him for something, I seem to forget everything, and I walk out like, oh my God, I forgot everything, but maybe my keys. So actually, I left the keys in the apartment once while I had him outside in the middle of the winter. So that was a fun day. But yeah, ultimately the big questions become bigger, and songs like Tremble take on an even more realistic meaning, because they really, I feel like we're living in a time where we really do have to ask ourselves, what kind of a world are we creating for for our children. And I'm reminded of that every single time I look at him and speak with him and play with him. And Andrew had filmed his daughter after she had watched the video that we cut for the Rhinos Association that we donated the song to. And that was an amazing thing to watch, just how impressionable she was and how she was able to communicate what she saw to Andrew was really incredible. And just the reminder, of course, it hit directly home with us. My son is a year and a half younger than his daughter. So, very close in age.
Olivier, what do you want for the future for your kids?
I think there's a lot of course correcting that needs to happen. It just seems like every avenue we take, if we follow it to its projected end, it doesn't look very good. You pick your topic, pick any topic, and it's just a bit bleak, but at the same time, it's important to keep the hope up. But if you have hope without direction, it becomes a bit senseless. So I just want him to grow up seeing things in the world that inspire him to make the world better, inclusive, both with humanity, with his environment, and striving to make sure that we're in a quest for our own survival now. It seems it's you look at the state of soil, you look at the state of water, you look at the state of the air, you look at the state of climate change and what that does. You look at how much biodiversity we've killed over the last 50 years. You look at the daunting shadow of the sixth great extinction on the planet, and all of these things just are so overwhelming. At least they are to me. That it would be great in our lifetime to say that we have charted the course for Earth and humans, more importantly, on Earth, to sort of climb out of this hole that we've dug. And it's going to take a lot of eye-opening moments and for people to sort of look at the greater picture of life as opposed to the day-to-day needs, which blind us. I think one of the lyrics in Tremble is, "Have we been blinded by our lives?" And that's kind of what it means. It's what it points to. It's the fact that have our lives and the kind of lives that we've created, particularly the consumerism part of it, has all of that really made it just so difficult to look at the bigger picture, to even listen to people who have just greater sentiments outside of their own bubbles, bigger than themselves, and really want to transcend and as a humanity, as opposed to the pettiness that we live day to day. And I would love for my son to be able to live in a world that's left a lot of that behind, still a work in progress, but at the very least to have the blueprints and that direction already set.
Andrew Doolittle, Olivier Raynal, they're known as Antisolar, and they join us beyond the mic. Andrew, how has your time in Oklahoma, Los Angeles, Paris, and around the world help you discover who you are and who you want to be for your daughter?
I think that a big part of it is that it's made me just appreciate how broad and beautiful the world is. Growing up in the Midwest, in Wisconsin and Oklahoma, it's like you have a certain set of experiences that then just going different places and seeing how differently people live, but then also realizing how much we're all the same really just gives a beautiful perspective, I think, on the world broadly. And, I certainly want my daughter to have a lot of the same experiences where she gets to travel, where she gets to, experience all kind of the great things that the world has to offer. It all contributes to kind of, realizing that there's a lot of beauty in this big world that we live in.
How has your time, this education in this cutthroat industry, caused you to love or loathe it?
I think for music, for what we're able to do, I think what's really wonderful is that I feel like there's a lot less pressure with this project than some of the projects that I was endeavoring to back in my 20s and early 30s. It felt then like, so much energy was wasted on the need for it to work. It needed to be validated. It had to be something that just, was successful and measured success. I never imagined myself, at the Grammys, but just I needed some kind of a validation where with this particular project, it's great because, and even now as I'm writing new material, I just feel like there's so much, the channels are open and it really allows for the pressure to be a lot less. As far as loathing, I don't know that I'm loathing the music side of things right now. I'm quite fascinated with the DIY music scene because it's up to you really. And you don't have to answer to labels shooting you down a lot like casting directors in the acting industry. You follow a few steps and you can at least get your music on the platforms. And once it's on the platforms, you can promote yourself. You cut out a middleman, which they're the ones that used to make me loathe the music industry. So the loathing part for me comes more into the acting with the difficulties sometimes you have as an actor to just get casting directors to notice you and to, allow for them to allow you to just audition for something. You're not asking for any hand-me-downs. You're not asking for anyone to hand you the part, but just to be able to audition for something in a world that has so much content now and the ability to do audition in your closet on your iPhone. So I guess the loathing part comes with the fact that technology has made it easier and sometimes it's not necessarily the case.
My answer to that is that, first of all, I agree with Olivier that I think in a lot of ways the industry is better in the sense that it's much more accessible than it used to be. And I loathe it a lot less, I think, because of that. And then the other part of it too is that I think that a lot of what is important to kind of recognize about the industry is that, it's like any other business where basically the real question is always kind of, well, what's in it for each party? And so when you kind of recognize that, like, look, everybody's got, there's certain thing that they're trying to do within the industry, whether you're on the creative side or the promotional side or anything like that, it's, you kind of realize that, like, okay, this is really about just kind of working with each other and building each other up. And that's something that I think people can kind of discover on a micro scale with the industry the way that it is today. And I've found it really both exciting and encouraging just for, kind of what you're able to do in that realm in this day and age.
Looking back on that one moment when a mutual friend got you together for a recording session, how important was that one moment in both of your lives?
Well, I'm still in the music business thanks to it. Meeting Andrew, a mutual friend was Luke Tozer, I believe. We were in a recording session for guitar tracks, and Luke Tozer was tracking them and invited Andrew to come along. And that was the genesis, which led to Andrew becoming our music director shortly thereafter when we started doing the live shows, both in LA as well as in Paris. Also forging an incredible friendship over the years. So the friendship guides the music, really. And there it is. Here we are, on the wrong side of 40, still pushing tracks, and the DIY music scene is allowing us to do so in our 40s and not really question it. So it was, looking back, it's quite the pivotal moment. Right place, right time for both of us.
I think the one thing that I remember so clearly about that day that I'll pass on as advice to anybody else trying to kind of come up in the industry is it's always smart to buy lunch for, the principals whenever you go somewhere. It was at a recording session where they were tracking guitars with Tim Pierce, who's like absolutely legendary studio musician here. And so my friend Luke had invited me basically to be a fly on the wall for that session. I just remember buying lunch and hanging out with all those guys. Yeah, I mean, that obviously it created a lot of opportunity for me, obviously with Olivier, and then also in terms of just how it cemented my relationship with some of the other people, including Luke, that were involved in that project. And it was definitely one of those moments that stands out as kind of a mark in time that a lot of positive things grew out of.
What's your next challenge other than getting together?
Yeah, that's you just hit it. You know, the discussions are about when am I coming back to record new stuff. I'm happy to say that I've got some really, for me, I'm excited about 4 songs to record. So that'll be the initial challenge. I think at the same time, it's about continuing to generate excitement and find new listeners with the songs that we're already pushing now. You know, it can be a slow process. So for a lot of people, it's important to remember that for a lot of people out there, it's going to be the first time that they hear it the day that they hear it. So it's not always about when it was released. It's also about the fact that, well, it's going to be a slow burner. And for a lot of people, they're going to hear Tremble or they're going to hear Awake when they hear it. And that could spark more interest, generate new listeners for the older stuff. And it's important to keep on them as well as the new material, because obviously we know content is key, and there's no better content than the actual music that you're able to produce.
I feel like a big part of it is that at this point, because this is kind of a whole new music industry compared to, you know, when we were last self-releasing anything, we're learning so much with every single release at this point. So like every single that we put out, we try to get better in terms of how we promote. Yeah, and do different things with it. So so that's the big challenge for us. Sorry, my daughter. So, okay, yes, I see. It's beautiful. Do you want me to start that one over, Sean?
It's okay. There's nothing better than the joy of kids.
Yeah, totally.
What's one thing you want people to remember about Antisolar and you?
You know, I had I can't remember exactly how I phrased it, but we were, Andrew had asked me some questions for a blog review recently, and it had, you know, I kind of had to think about what Antisolar is to me, or the music, or describe it, if you will. And, you know, a lot of, I mean, I love for our songs to make people want to just run outside, jump in a convertible car, and if they don't have one, literally go to Hertz and just rent one for the day and just feel the elation that music can bring. You know, that feeling of the top down music, driving in a straight line for 100 miles at 100 miles an hour. There's something about, that's what I loved growing up. I love that feeling of freedom that music can bring. And even though the topics are born out of despondence or heartache or you know, confusion about where we are in the world, I really want the songs to still sort of transport people and take them somewhere, and you know, for the most part, walk away feeling joyous and elated. And I think I want that for the music. And as far as us, you know, just the two schmucks that wanted to take them there, you know, late into our 70s if we can.
I feel like I want people to know and to kind of just be cognizant that we really aim to be universal in a lot of ways. I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday in reference to a song. There are certain lyrics in different things that have very, very specific meaning to us, but that I think, you know, are also broad enough that people can read their own experiences into them. A lot of it is just, you know, I want people to find their own meaning in these songs. As much as, you know, we might try to direct them in certain ways, it's like, what ways in your own life do you find these things relatable and hopefully inspiring as well? Yeah,
that's a very important point.
It's time for One Big Question with Andrew Doolittle and Olivier Raynal from Antisolar Beyond the Mic. Gentlemen, we've been talking about change today. Do you think massive change in our current world is actually possible, or is it more dependent on more than one person attempting it?
I definitely think it's dependent on a lot of people wanting to change, but as well as governments getting together to actually make that change. And we saw with COVID that if we just cut all the red tape and all the obsolescence and we put the idea that, you know, we can get there, but let's do it slowly so that we can bleed as much money out of this product as possible versus this product and this energy versus that. We needed to get something done quickly, and we were able to come up with a vaccine in a, you know, if compared to other vaccines throughout history, it's incredible the achievement that we were able to come up with. And I think we can do the exact same thing. I think COVID should serve as a sort of a model for exactly how we need to approach the world now. But for that, a lot of people have to come together and stop the pettiness. I think we politicize a lot of things, and I think a lot of people are doubling down on that, and not necessarily because they're bad people, because it's what they know, and they're protecting what they know for the fear of what they don't, right? I mean, that's what we do as humans. And it's that, to me, is that balance. And that area between the two is where I like to sit and watch and get inspired for music, actually. So I do think change is possible. It has to happen with me. I need to change a lot about myself. I'm constantly doing things wrong, and still, because of what I've learned, I need to unlearn. I'm hardwired in a certain way that still affects decisions that I make today, which aren't good decisions. From, oops, didn't do my recycling as well as I could. I washed this can of tuna with water. I shouldn't be doing that. Those are, the small things to even bigger things. So it starts with me. But on the bigger picture, the clock is ticking, and we need to start listening to people a little bit more that know what they're on about. That once that's done, and I hope we do it before really we reach the alarm bells. That's my concern, is that we do it a bit late. But I want to remain hopeful. I have to remain hopeful because I have a 2-year-old now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to have hope, right? I think that's the first and foremost thing is we'll certainly never accomplish anything if we let hope go by the wayside. Hope is absolutely first and foremost, and then I do absolutely also have just a belief in the ability, of humanity to do absolutely great things if there's the will to do so. I mean, think about things like the Manhattan Project or things like that, where it's like you tackle seemingly insurmountable odds in a relatively short period of time. I think that we have reason to have optimism if we can muster the will to push us over the finish line with some of these things.
They want bionic knees and legs, forget things when they're nervous, and you won't see them under the foam at a dance club. They are Antisolar. We thank Andrew Doolittle and Olivier Raynal for taking the time to talk with us today.
Amazing.
Thank you, Sean.
Yep, thank you, Sean.
And that, my friends, is Beyond the Mic.